Good evening, and welcome back to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries. Tonight, before you turn out the light, take a quiet look around your room. Notice where the mirrors are. Notice what they reflect. And ask yourself one question. If you fell asleep with your reflection watching you, who would wake up first? For centuries, across continents and cultures, people have shared a quiet warning. Do not sleep facing a mirror. It appears in different forms. In Chinese Feng Shui, a mirror positioned directly across from a bed is believed to disturb rest and invite unwanted energy. In Victorian England, mirrors were covered after death to prevent souls from becoming trapped. In parts of Eastern Europe, children were told never to sleep where they could see their reflection in moonlight. The reasoning shifts, the caution remains. In Feng Shui philosophy, mirrors are considered powerful because they double energy. Whatever they face, they amplify. If a mirror reflects the bed, it is said to duplicate the sleeper, creating spiritual unrest, a second presence in the room. Some traditions even claim it invites a third energy, an unseen observer drawn to the vulnerability of sleep. But this belief is not isolated. In 19th century England, it was common practice to cover mirrors when someone died in the home. The explanation given was simple. The soul, newly released, might become confused by its reflection and linger. In older folklore, however, the concern was darker. Mirrors were not passive surfaces. They were thresholds. Before glass mirrors were common, polished metal and still water were used for reflection. Ancient civilizations believed reflective surfaces could reveal truths hidden from ordinary sight. Scrying, the practice of gazing into mirrors or water to receive visions, was documented in Greece, Rome, and later Renaissance Europe. To look into a mirror for too long was to risk seeing something not meant for you, and sleep, in nearly every tradition, is a vulnerable state. Across cultures, sleep has been described as a temporary death, a nightly journey of the soul beyond the body. In Islamic tradition, sleep is sometimes described as the soul leaving briefly before returning at waking. In ancient Greek thought, dreams were messages from other realms. If the soul wanders during sleep, what does a mirror see? Some Slavic folktales tell of spirits that imitate the living. These entities could not cross running water or iron barriers, but they could enter through reflection. A mirror facing a sleeping person was believed to give them access to an unguarded image, a likeness without resistance. In Romanian folklore, there are stories of night spirits that could borrow a reflection before taking something more tangible. The fear was not merely that something would enter the room, it was that something would enter through you. Victorian superstition layered additional anxiety onto mirrors. The Victorians were deeply preoccupied with death and mourning rituals. They believed mirrors could trap images, and images were intimately tied to identity. Photography itself was sometimes feared for similar reasons, that capturing a likeness could disturb the soul. When mirrors faced beds, they reflected the sleeper in darkness. A pale face lit by moonlight, eyes closed, body still. It resembled a corpse. In candlelight, movement might flicker in the glass before the sleeper stirred. The mind is exquisitely sensitive in low light. Modern psychology offers a less mystical explanation. When we wake during the night, our brains are still partially in dream state. Visual processing is slowed. Peripheral perception is heightened. Seeing your own reflection unexpectedly, especially distorted by shadow, can trigger a fight or flight response. The human brain is wired to detect faces. Even vague shapes resembling eyes or outlines will activate recognition pathways. In darkness, the mirror becomes a canvas for projection. We do not always see ourselves. We see what we fear. There is a documented phenomenon known as the strange face illusion, where individuals staring at their reflection in dim light begin to perceive distortions. Features shift, faces appear unfamiliar. Some report seeing entirely different identities. The explanation lies in sensory adaptation and neurological fatigue. But to someone centuries ago, without neuroscience, the experience would have felt supernatural. The mirror changed you, and sleep intensified that vulnerability. There is also a more subtle layer to this superstition, one less about spirits and more about identity. To sleep is to surrender control. You close your eyes, your breathing slows, your body becomes still, you trust the darkness. A mirror, however, continues watching. It reflects absence as easily as presence. To sleep facing a mirror is to position yourself before an unblinking witness. Perhaps the discomfort comes not from spirits, but from the idea of being observed while defenseless. The mirror never closes its eyes. In some Southeast Asian traditions, mirrors were believed to attract wandering spirits who mistook reflection for entry. In certain Filipino folk beliefs, mirrors could be used to trap malevolent entities. But only if positioned skälv. Placement mattered. Facing a doorway. Protective. Facing a bed. Risky. In Feng Shui, a mirror facing the bed is said to invite marital discord, insomnia, and intrusion of third-party energy. Whether interpreted literally or symbolically, the underlying theme remains consistent. Mirrors disrupt the boundary of rest. Even in modern homes, interior designers often advise against mirrors directly opposite beds, not for spiritual reasons, but because movement in reflection can disturb light sleep. The superstition persists because the discomfort persists. Consider this. If you wake suddenly at 3 a.m, the hour often associated with folklore and unease, and your eyes adjust to darkness, the first thing you may see is your own shape in the mirror, still watching. The rational mind knows it is only reflection, but the ancient mind whispers differently. Across centuries, humans have treated reflective surfaces with caution. In Japanese folklore, mirrors were sacred objects capable of revealing truth and warding off evil. In other traditions, breaking a mirror was said to bring 7 years of bad luck, perhaps because it fractured not just glass, but image. To fracture image is to fracture self. When you sleep, your sense of self dissolves into dream. Boundaries blur, time bends. You become someone else for hours. Now imagine that state mirrored back at you. Is it any wonder cultures chose caution? The superstition that you should not sleep facing a mirror may not be about spirits stealing souls. It may be about the fragile architecture of identity. Sleep requires trust. The room must feel enclosed, safe, contained. A mirror expands space. It doubles the room. It creates depth where none exists. In darkness, that depth feels infinite, and humans have always feared infinite spaces. Whether through folklore of wandering souls, Victorian mourning customs, or Feng Shui energy flow, the message remains consistent across cultures. When you sleep, reduce the openings. Close the door, draw the curtains, turn away the mirror. It is not necessarily that something will enter. It is that something might feel too close. Modern science explains away much of what frightened our ancestors, yet even now, many people instinctively angle mirrors away from beds. They cannot articulate why. They simply prefer it that way. Some superstitions survive, because they answer a practical discomfort. Others survive because they brush against something deeper. Mirrors remind us that identity is not fixed. That image can shift, that the version of ourselves we see is both familiar and strange. And in the quiet hours of the night, when dreams pull us elsewhere, perhaps we do not wish to leave a doorway open behind us. So tonight, before you sleep, take one more look at the mirrors in your room. Notice what they reflect. Notice what they double. And if one of them faces your bed, you may decide to turn it slightly, just in case. If tonight's story made you reconsider the quiet surfaces in your room, then perhaps the old warnings still hold a certain power. Subscribe to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries for more forgotten fears, hidden folklore, and the small superstitions that linger long after their origins are forgotten. And when you turn out the light tonight, try not to look back.